and welcome. Dave Romanchuk here, your Director of Product Management here at Revenova TMS. I'm very excited to be with you here again today because I'm here to bring you another edition of the Revenova Release webinars. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, so you know what that means. It must be time for the Fall Revenova Product Release webinar. So the first thing that I'll mention is you might have noticed in some of our marketing materials and literature that we're framing this or calling this release the Fall 24 release, and that's not a misprint. We've actually decided to start renaming our releases according to a seasonal and yearly based release naming convention. And we find that that'll be easier for folks to track which release they're on instead of moving from number to number. So this is not the 7/13 release that perhaps you might have been expecting. It's the Fall 24 release, and moving forward it'll be the Winter 25, Spring 25, so on and so forth. There's a lot of new goodies in this release, and so we're very excited to get into it. So without further ado, let's dive in. So just first, a little bit of housekeeping, just a couple of reminders. We are recording this session, so if there are folks at your company that aren't able to attend this, we will be sending the links out, or I should say we will be posting the links on the Revenova Learning Center, which you can share with your fellow company employees. And then the second reminder here, again, as before, if you do have a question that comes to mind throughout any of the demos, throughout any of the presentation, please enter those into the Q&A feature, into the Ring Central webinar control. And for those that we can't get to on the webinar, we will follow up offline. So to touch on the highlights for the Fall 24 release, the features that I'm showing here are kind of bucketed into two segments. There's the new features, and then there's the enhancements to existing features. So what you're looking at on this slide here are the features that we're going to be getting into some of the more explicit demos. So the product managers will be walking through each of these features in a bit more detail. And then I have another slide that will list some of the more miscellaneous enhancements, still some of the favorite ones that I have for this release, but we won't be explicitly demoing those. So with that said, why don't we jump into the first new feature on the list here, which is the Carrier RFQ Duplicate Management. And for that, we're going to toss it over to our very own Liam Purcell. Liam?
In our Fall 24 release, we take a look at the request for quotes that we send out of the TMS. Specifically, we look at the RFQ emails and calls being sent from our Find Carriers LWC. When you're sending those requests for quotes to carriers, you want to ensure that you're not sending duplicate requests or requesting quotes from the same carrier multiple times on the same load. I'll show you our new feature that helps to prevent that. So in our Fall 24 release, we update the Carrier Match LWC to now facilitate the tracking of RFQ requests to our carriers. In other words, in the Carrier Match LWC, which we already use today to submit GET quote requests to our carrier services, we now have a request status column. Now this column simply tracks whether I've already reached out to the carrier service listed to tell the rest of your team there's no need to reach out to this carrier, I already talked to them, no need to send them more emails or hit them up with more calls. To show you how it works, I will select a couple of carrier services in this list, and just as I do today, I'll click the Get Quotes button. And you'll see, once it finishes loading, the green success bar saying 2 email quote requests were sent to the carrier services I selected. And then once you refresh this widget, you'll also see the requested status in that column, calling out that you've sent a Get Quotes email to these carriers. Now, the other way we can add the requested value to this column is using the new Log Call button. To show you how it works, I will select this carrier service and I'll simply hit Log Call. And it happens quickly. You can see the button now deactivated, calling out that the call was successfully logged. So when I hit the refresh button, the request status is in there. The other way that we can log a call is on the Log Call activity page. So under our Activity tab, if I go in and I go log a call, I have to choose Send Quote as the subject. This is basically saying, hey, I called a carrier and the topic of conversation was asking them to send us a quote. I can type in called at 10 a.m., waiting to hear back. I can then add a contact, and it's important that I add the contact for the carrier service that I reached out to, because that'll be important in a second when we go back to the Carrier Match LWC. And then when I hit save and I create this call, you'll see it's been added to the activity feed. And when I jump back to find carriers and I refresh the widget, now my request status is requested for Arsenal Gunners Truckers. Now the last place we'll call out that we've already requested a quote from a carrier is within the FQA. If you think about it, oftentimes our users are jumping in and searching for a carrier that they want to reach out to so they can click the Get Quotes button to request a quote. And when they select a carrier service that's already been contacted, you'll now see this nice handy Quotes Requested pill telling you that there's no need to call or email. They have an email sitting in their inbox asking them to submit a quote on this load with the click of a button. So again, to summarize, we're just preventing you from sending multiple requests to the same carrier, or allowing you to track the carriers you've reached out to on a given load, giving you the ability to track which users or which carriers your users are contacting, and also preventing some frustration for that important carrier network of yours.
First, I'm going to set up the auto-applied rate entry, and you'll see here I'm going to set it up as a global rate entry for truckload shipments on any lane in the US. We're going to test out the customer rate entry here, and we're going to list it as an accessorial, and the stop-off will be the type of accessorial. Then we're going to click this checkbox to auto-apply it. Now here is where we'll create the parameters for when the customer will get charged. For the rate method, you're going to select per additional stop, and then you're going to configure what we call the baseline, and so this will be the included stops within the load. And so just for simplicity's sake here, we're going to do one pick, one drop as the baseline, and anything over that for an additional stop, the customer will be charged $100. So we're going to save out this rate entry here. Then we're going to build a load. I'm going to save that out. Once the load saves, we'll head over to the FQA. And you'll notice that the additional stop-off charge of $100 was applied to the customer quote. Let's take a look at one more cool feature that gives your organization a little bit more flexibility as to how much they're going to charge and when those charges will be applied. So we're going to go back to the rate entry that we just configured. We're going to head down here, and you can see that I configured a matrix that will apply a stop-off charge of $100 for the third stop, and then $75 for the fourth, and $50 should there be a fifth stop. And so this will just give your company a little more flexibility as to whether or not they want to include discounts on stop-off charges. So we're going to go back to that same load, and you'll see that I added an additional stop going to Seattle Mariners. I'm going to head over to the FQA and confirm that it applied 2 additional stops for $75 each stop of a total $150 additional stop-off charge.
We've integrated with BorderConnect so that asset-based companies can file ACE and ACI manifests all within Revenova. This will make the cross-border process intuitive and super easy. In the TMS, I've built a trip plan, and you can see I've already got the tractor, driver, and load associated. This load is starting or picking up in Canada, and then it is delivering in Wisconsin. Go Packers. We've added a trailer and a seal number, and then once I save this trip plan, you'll see on the leg that has the cross-border, this manifest builder icon renders. This will open the builder, and as you can see, all the information that was previously entered on the trip plan as well as on the load and the underlining records were carried over. So the customs port was what was set on the trip plan leg, as well as the arrival date and the arrival time. This can all be adjusted as needed. And then if I scroll down, we have the different records that are required by the governments in order to submit the manifest. So we've got the truck or the tractor, we've got driver details, trailer details, as well as load and line item information. There's also parties and passengers. Passengers would allow you to submit, for example, if you have a driver that's being trained and there's another person in the cab with him while he's crossing the border, you would be able to submit that here. So I'll go ahead and add a contact to give you an idea. You can see since it was an unsaved change, it's highlighted here in green. And then parties will allow you to submit additional accounts or companies that you want to be aware of the manifest. Scrolling up, I'm going to go ahead and save this manifest. You'll see that the trip number was automatically generated. This is going to be a unique number that we will send to BorderConnect and then on to the border. So this is going to be a very important field to keep note of. And then scrolling down to the load section. So this shipment type field is going to allow you to define the exact type of shipment. So if I go ahead and select PAPS, you can see that the fields rendered changed, and this is because those are the fields that are going to be required in order to submit that type of shipment to the US or Canadian border. So if I click on ACE Inbound, you'll see that there's quite a few more required fields, and this is because the border will require that you send an inbound type, an inbound number, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and select PAPS because this is going to be the most common type of shipment for ACE. The PAPS number is rendered here, and you can see it was preset with the SCAC code associated with the carrier. Then we also allow you to type in the PAPS number. So if you're using a PAPS sticker booklet, you're able to make sure that the stickers that you're associating with the load is going to be it matches the PAPS number that you submit to the border. If you're not using the stickers, you can go ahead and select this magic wand icon, which will generate a unique PAPS number that will be submitted. So I'll go ahead and scroll back up to the top. I'll hit save, and I'm going to go ahead and validate this with BorderConnect. So what that means by pressing validate is we're sending this to BorderConnect and BorderConnect only. When I hit the validate, you can also see that a BorderConnect transaction was created. It has an action of validate because that's the button that I pressed, and then a status of pending. When we receive a response back from BorderConnect, it'll either be it'll either be successful or an error. So I'll go ahead and hit refresh, and you can see that I received an error back. The overall manifest status is now invalidated because BorderConnect was not able to validate this because of the error. You'll see at the bottom here, there's this current errors, and it's in red text, and this is exactly what needs to be changed on the manifest. This will show all of the errors, so it won't just be one, it would show you all, one to many if there's any additional errors that need to be adjusted. So for this one, the license plate number for the truck was left off. So I'll go ahead and add that here and then hit save and then resubmit it. So you can see that a second BorderConnect transaction was created with that same action as validate and a status again of pending. So I hit refresh and you can see that BorderConnect responded and a status of success is now shown, and the overall manifest status is validated. This means that they were able to validate it and everything looked good. We also have the ability to send, which means you would be sending it directly to BorderConnect, who would then send it on to the customs agency. The validation would still occur, so you would still receive any response or errors back, and you could adjust and resend as needed. Once it's sent, you would then update it, so you would make the changes that are required. And then we also have this red revoke button, which would be deleting it from BorderConnect system as well as the custom agency system. All right, clicking on the Documents tab, we have this pick list here for document type. So depending on the direction, so if it's ACE or ACI, these pick list values will change. So I'll go ahead and submit the ACE detailed version and hit submit. This is going to create another BorderConnect transaction because we've just requested this via their API. They'll respond with the detailed cover sheet. So I'll go ahead and hit refresh. And you can see that the document is rendered here in the file viewer. So I'll go ahead and open this. This is the detailed version of the ACE cover sheet. And you can see it has a lot of details about the truck, trailer, and the shipments. We also have the ability to request the kind of more standard skimmed down version of the cover sheet. And then we have the PAPS cover sheet, which would be specific to each shipment or load, and that's generated within Revenova. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is generate some responses in BorderConnect system so that you can see what it would look like when we get back responses from the border or via BorderConnect. So I'll go ahead and enter in my trip number. And this would not need to be something that you guys handle once you're using the integration. Again, this would happen automatically via the API. This is just to give you an idea. So I'm generating a fake ACE response. So I'm going to overall accept the trip. And then I'm going to generate a second one to give a shipment level update. So you can see I'm including the entry number. So if the border responds and they provide an entry number, that will be received and we'll parse that information into Revenova. And I'll queue another outbound response. And then when I hop back into the manifest manager and hit refresh, you can see that I received a success message, and I'll hit refresh one more time, and we should receive that second response. So you can see underneath there's this ACE notifications, and when I drop down, it shows the entry is now on file by customs. And when I scroll down, it also shows that entry number there. If I go down to the individual load, you'll also see that the entry number is rendered and that this accepted checkbox is true. If I hop back into BorderConnect's UI, I'm going to do another shipment update, and this time I'm going to mimic that it was released. So I'll queue that outbound. Again, this is not going to be something you would need to do in the API. This will all happen automatically. So I will refresh this eManifest, and you can see that the response came in. There's now another ACE notification showing that it's entered and released. And then if I scroll down, the released checkbox is now true. To give you an idea of what this looks like for ACI, instead of having an ACE notification, it will now show RNS notification. For this example, I built a load that was in a trip plan. So there was one carrier load with 3 separate customer loads. Those are all broken out. So each load or shipment is going to have its own status as well as transaction number. If I scroll down to the load section, you'll see again that each load is broken down and that each has its own entry number as well as accepted and released checkboxes. Okay, the last bit of the UI that I want to show you today is the Manifest Manager. So this is going to be your one-stop shop for managing all of the eManifests that are currently needing attention. So a couple things that we did is you can search in the search bar by manifest. So if you have a specific manifest that you're looking for, you can search by that, as well as trip number. So go ahead and enter that. And then as well as trip plan. And you can see it pulls back that specific manifest. We've also added the ability to select specific statuses. So for example, if you want to look at your rejected and maybe your invalidated, you can see which ones are kind of in a needing immediate attention status. So these are the ones that need the most help and you need to action them as soon as possible. And you're also able to sort by this arrival date. So if you want to look at your ones that are the driver's on his way to the border and he's shortly arriving, you'd be able to sort by that and see which ones are most crucial. The last piece is these little quick actions here. So if I select a specific manifest and click the edit button, it'll open that manifest builder UI. So you're able to make any changes that you might need, as well as this document button here, which will open let me grab a good one that has some documents. So this now shows those cover sheets there right for you. All right, and then one last bit of UI. I lied to you earlier. Okay, so on the manifest builder, on the individual pieces, so for truck, driver, trailer, and loads, we created field sets that allow you to select which fields you want to be shown in the builder. So, for example, we've got VIN and status number. When I hop back on the manifest builder and I look at the truck, you can see that those fields correspond, as well as driver. If I look at which fields are shown here, you can see that that'll correspond to the field set for the driver manifest builder. This will give you the ultimate flexibility, so you're able to decide what you want your users to see, and make sure that it's right at their fingertips so they don't have to leave the manifest builder when they're submitting days. We've also added this go to driver record link, which opens up a new tab, which will pull up the actual driver's record. And then if you scroll down to the travel credentials, this is a new object that we've added that allows you to enter the different documents that are required by the border to be submitted. So if your driver's fast card approved, you would enter a travel credential for this fast card, as well as his CDL and his passport and so on.
In our Fall 24 release, we expand our partnership with SMC3 to include their new direct APIs, or the Execution and Visibility APIs. And to summarize, this changes the RateWare and CarrierConnect integration that we already have and expands on it to include tendering, tracking, documents, and pro number assignment. I'll show you how it works. So in our carrier services for execution and visibility APIs through SMC3, we will enter the quote, tender, and status methods of API as usual. The setup is fairly similar to how you would set up your existing RateWare carrier service. Now, one important thing to note here is that you heard me mention this execution and visibility API integration includes tendering, tracking, pro number automation, and documents. You'll notice it does not include quoting. In this first phase of our expanded partnership with SMC3, we are quoting with the RateWare tariff-based rating, and we're using the direct APIs for the rest of those features that I mentioned. So again, to reiterate, our existing RateWare integration allows you to quote using tariff-based rating, and when you set up your carrier service here, and your quote method is set to API, we will be using the RateWare integration as opposed to a direct-to-carrier quoting integration. That piece is coming down the road, so stay tuned there. But then again, tender method API, status method API has you all set up to use this new integration piece. Then when you go to build your load, within the Freight Quote Assistant, you'll find quotes from the carrier services that you have set on your rate entries. And to open up the rate entries, I'll show you exactly what I mean. I'll access it right from the load here. You'll see on my execution and visibility rate entries, it looks, again, very similar to how you would set up a RateWare rate entry. We've got our tariff name, the effective date, our rate method is API, and again, the carrier service is what connects it to that carrier service I just mentioned. So again, jumping back into the load, you'll see that I have a RateWare tariff-based quote, but I can now tender, automatically assign a pro, track, and receive documents for this load, even though I'm just quoting with tariff-based rating. So to show you how that works, you'll see I've got the request pro number field here, and this ties into that automated pro number assignment feature. Going back to our carrier service, I have a checkbox that coincides with that feature that allows me to automatically request the pro number based on the carrier service that I have here. So in the load, in our FQA, if I check the request pro number box and I hit tender, we will send this tender request to SMC3, and we will automatically assign a pro from the blocks of pros that they have available via API. And the real benefit here, to summarize, is that you're ensuring that the pro number you have from this carrier is accurate. Oftentimes, the pro number can differ, and that causes confusion down the road. But with a direct API pulling from the pro blocks that SMC3 manages, that gives you a little bit of a reassurance that you are getting the right reference number and that there won't be as much confusion down the road. So you can see my load is tendered successfully, and when we do that, we jump right into the tracking feature within this integration. I'll jump over to the summary tab, and you can see that my tracking process is already running because we've tendered this load with SMC3's execution and visibility APIs, and because the pickup date is today. So we will automatically start that tracking session if the pickup is within 1 day or sooner, and if it's a little further out into the future, we will wait to kick off that tracking session, but we will do so automatically again when it falls in that date time frame. So you can see I am automatically receiving status updates here. We're matching on the pro number, and I am receiving updates from SMC3 for this load showing that it picked up at Peachtree City, Georgia. So we've seen the automated pro assignment, we've seen the tendering, we've seen the tracking, but again, as I mentioned, you'll also receive documents when they become available from SMC3. So you can see here's a load that I've already delivered with this SMC3 integration. And in the Documents tab, when I open up the files, you'll see as it loads, you'll have the BOL that we generated for the load, but you'll also have files that have come in from the carrier, things like your delivery receipt, your weight and inspection ticket, and the bill of lading directly from the carrier, so that you have this information and you have the documents that apply to this load directly from our API. So again, to summarize, this integration with SMC3 just expands your ability to manage your LTL freight using the SMC3 connection to Revenova. You can still quote with Rateware, you can still use Carrier Connect to identify the terminal information, but you can now automatically pull in pro numbers, you can tender directly to the carrier, track throughout the process, and receive documents on that load.
Let's take a look at an example of a freight plan with 3 different customer loads picking up in Boston with one carrier and delivering to Denver, Colorado. And then one of these loads will be transloaded onto a new carrier, and 2 of them will be transloaded onto a second carrier and delivering in Los Angeles to the same facility. I'm going to go ahead and press clone, and I'm going to clone all of the customer loads here and press save. And you'll notice that the new freight plan was cloned, and if you take a look at the reference numbers, you'll notice that those are all updated to new records. And then if we go ahead and click into one of the new carrier loads itself, wait for the stop to render here. You'll notice that all of the line items are updated with newly created records as well. So that's just one simple example. Obviously, the more complex the plan gets, the more valuable the ability to clone it will become.
Hey everybody, I'm Christine Sweeney. I'm excited here to tell you today about some enhancement we made to our EDI processing. We've taken the EDI load references and now really expanded that. So specifically what we've done is we've added a direction on there so that you can specify inbound, outbound, or both, as well as we've added the ability for you to take these references from the reference segments in your 204s and map them to Revenova fields. So here I'm on my EDI location. I've got a direction. I can determine outbound, meaning I just want to send it to my customer. Inbound, I just want to receive it from my customer, or both. I want to send it and I receive it. Then we have the load object. So this is a load field that I'm going to receive. I want it to go into this custom field I built, which is the Christine custom load reference. You can use either a package field or a custom field, as I've done here on the load, in order to add that. And then it knows what field to map it from based on the LR type in your 204 reference. So when we take a look at the 204, I'll quickly show that to you. But that LR reference means take the data that's contained in that segment, put it on the load in the Christine custom load reference. This mapping can happen on three objects. We've got the load, the stop, and the line item. And again, you can specify the fields. Basically, you're going to go to the EDI load referent object and add your fields here, making sure to use the API name. And then you also have to map that field to the object, right? Because that pick list won't know which object it belongs to. So you simply double click and that will put it on the correct object. And that's what drives that pick list here of load, stop, line item, knowing from that object which one it should be. So I have on this particular EDI location, I have 4 mappings. I have one for the load, meaning I'm going to receive it from the customer and send it to the customer. I have one on the stop, which is outbound only. That means that your operations team, when after they receive a 204, can add information that the customer needs in their system as part of that reference. And I'll show that to you in a minute. Here we've got the both. Again, I want to send it and receive it. And then the last one is inbound only. It's a reference my customer is going to send me. They don't need it back in the EDI messaging, but I want it for my reporting or for my documents. So let's take a look at how this happens. The first step is, like I said, the 204. So for those of you who are familiar with this is the reference section I was referring to. That type here has to match what you've done on the EDI location so that it knows to take this value, load reference inbound and outbound, and place that in Revenova on the field that I've created. So if we now go back to our field in our load, we should expect to see that field that I just showed you on the load, which is right here, right? So we can see that now instead of just showing on the EDI references, this is now actually appearing as a field. Similarly, I have a line item field, which is going to do the same thing. Remember, that was an inbound only. So if I take a look at this one, here we can see I have my line item inbound reference only. And then in the interest of time, I've gone ahead here and created the outbound only stop reference so that when we're now about to look at that EDI message, we can see that it's there. So let's take a look at our EDI tab. Here we're in our EDI tab, and I've set these up already just so that we could take a quick look. But previously, like I said, all of that information would only appear here on the load references. Now we can see it's loading into the system. So don't worry, those references will still appear here. But let's take a look at one of these messages to see how it's working. Okay. Now remember, I had set this up for a stop level outbound only, and then I have a load reference inbound and outbound. So let's take a look, and here you can see, again, my type LR. I've got my load reference, and then if we go down to my stop, so here I'm within the stop, you can see my load reference here, outbound stop only. So now you can see the power and the ability to configure your messages for exactly what your customer is looking for. You're still going to use your van to do customer specific mapping, but this will allow you to add information that might not be part of our standard, send, load, invoice, send, load, status messages. We've also enhanced our EDI messaging to add some fields that previously weren't standardly mapped. So we now have on the incoming 204 fields for equipment type, fields for PO, bill of lading number, order number, or hazmat contact. So here in that load that we were just looking at, we can see that my equipment type loaded, the dry van 53. I have a PO number down here, a standard PO. It will be able to handle multiple POs. It will just comma separate them. So instead now of having those as references, load references, they're now specific fields. So make sure to check out the new schema for those XMLs with the additional fields. We've highlighted the changes for you. We've also added to the 214s your load status's stop number on both incoming and outgoing messages. On incoming 214 load status messages, we've added time zone, long lat, as well as the event code so that you can see what was received. And then lastly, on the 214 outgoing, we've changed the trigger for that message to go if either date or time on appointment time has changed. So a lot of flexibility and functionality in what we've done here with our EDI. And please, take a look at the documentation because that will go through a lot more detail on this.
Earlier this summer, we went over the new fleet management package that we came out, which covered fleet management for assigning and seating drivers and managing your trucks, trip planning, where you would go in and assign trucks to loads and manage those and build out your legs, and appointment setting. This round, what we're going to review is the enhancements to trip planning, which include the ability to filter your assets and your freight utilizing inbound, outbound logic. The exciting news for the new release is we've enhanced the trip planning greatly, and we have now included the ability to do inbound, outbound planning. So you can set your screens up, and the example I've got here is I'm viewing all my assets that are in the Illinois market, and I'm comparing them, as you can see here in this example, to all my loads that are outbound out of Illinois within a date range. You can see that these will change dynamically depending on the view that you have. It's very easy to go in and set this up. I will show you the view process for this particular one. This would be for all loads that are outbound. And you can see it's as simple as choosing the zone that you want. The inbound, outbound selections here, and like any of the other views, you would go through the standard setup and configuration that you would normally do for a standard view. In the process of planning, then as you pick your views and go through them, you can change the dates dynamically. You don't have to go back in the view, so you don't have to set up what the important part is, you do not have to keep setting views up for the zones that you're working in. Once you have a view, it's basically for choosing the data that you're wanting to see on the screen initially. You can easily go in and remove the view simply by clicking on the X and typing in a new zone that you want to plan for. And by doing this, if you have loads within the date span, and you can change your range, it's going to go out and it's going to find all the loads that are within that area for planning. I changed my date range, and now I see all my loads that are outbound out of Wisconsin. Now that you've seen the inbound, outbound capabilities of the fleet management module, let's go into the new component that we've just finished, which is your equipment management. This gives you the ability to manage trailer pools, chassis, and containers. You can have these, define these as being in secured and unsecured lot locations. And the way that you would do this, you would take an account, terminal, however you have this set up in your system, and you'll see I've pulled up the Chicago terminal right now, and I've already defined this as a drop location. This is a requirement that you have to define every asset that you want to drop a trailer on, a container, or a chassis as a drop location. Once you define it as a drop location, you'll come down to the equipment pool area and you'll add a new equipment pool. I've already created a secure trailer pool for Chicago, and I'm going to make a new one, and you'll see how easy this is as typing in the name of the lot location, and I'm going to call this Chicago Unsecure, and I'm going to create this as a trailer pool location, and it is going to be an unsecured lot. I'm going to set it up for a 5-day threshold for your reporting, so you can do aging. You don't want your trailers to sit there more than 5 days, otherwise you want to be alerted to the fact that it's sitting there longer than that. What is my minimum allowed quantity of unsecured trailers on this lot, and what is the maximum amount of trailers I want on this lot for reporting? You can also add in the counts that for the available empties and the available loaded. All I have to do is save this, and I've just now created a trailer pool. As you can see here on the screen, this is the equipment trailer pool view for the fleet management console. Here you'll see the trailer pool and the information available. You'll see the brand new trailer pool that we just created, which is Chicago unsecured, and you'll also see the trailer pool that we have for the Chicago secured trailer pool, and other trailer pools that have been defined that actually have trailers in it right now. So let's come down here. By clicking on any one of these locations, it will dynamically change the values in the lower part of the grid to give you all the information about this equipment. You can create views, change the column headers just like you can through all the other applications to manage this. You can also go in and you can do spotting. So this is going to allow you to do yard checks and come through your trailers and update the values that they have. So let's just pick a few of these trailers right here, and let's spot the equipment. The available information that you have here, it's going to give you all the information. And let's say that this equipment right now really isn't located this one is not in the Missouri terminal. It's actually sitting in the new Chicago terminal. And I'm going to simply reposition this trailer here. The status is available. I can come in and say who's making this change, which would be myself right now. I can pick today's date and time, and I can save this. Or I can come up to this nice little icon here and I can say this applies to all these trailers, and I will say copy to all of them and save it. So it's very, very quick to update these. You'll also notice on this refresh, these trailers are no longer here, but if I come down to the Chicago terminal, here's my new trailers. Also, during the event of a yard check, if you have any equipment that has a problem, I'm going to come in here and respot this, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to change it that this equipment is damaged, and I have the ability to come up here and I can say, let's say I can share this, and now this chatter feed will be mentioned to the person on the other end. It will show up on their system. They'll be able to see that this trailer 1010 has a problem and it needs to be corrected. And I'll save this particular record. And you'll also notice down here, it's already marked as a status of damaged. This is how you would manage and manipulate and utilize for trailers, chassis, and frames for your equipment in multiple locations. If you have customers that you're going to set up trailer pools with, you would just go into the account, go to the transportation profile, set that up so that it's a drop location, and you can set up the trailer pool statistics for that. And when you pull up this screen, you have the same ability as everything else, that you can search by areas, only view certain customers for trailer pools, and manage everything. Very nice and neat in this one screen. Now I'm going to show you how to use the equipment management screen. Now that we've got it set up, we're going to apply it. First thing I'm going to do is go into a trip plan. I need to find trailers for this load. I'm going to search, and I have the ability of changing radius, searching origin, or searching destination, or both. Right now I'm just going to turn off the destination, and I'm going to increase my radius 50 miles, and you'll see that I get additional options out here for trailer pools. As I change my options, I'm going to get a listing of trailers that are going to be available in the area. I'm going to go to the Illinois terminal here. You'll see now that I've got 204 loaded miles, 78 deadhead miles, 282 total miles, and a 28% deadhead that I'm going to do on this load. I'm going to choose a trailer. I'm going to add it to my trip plan. As you can see now, by choosing the trailer to come out of the Illinois terminal, it automatically added in a new stop at the very beginning. And you can see we've got action and cargo status off to the side. So this trailer, the driver's going to go in, going to do a pickup on an empty trailer for trailer 1005. The next stop is going to be where we're going to go down and load it. So you'll see trailer 1005 has been copied. It's already set for hooked. Now I change the status of what's going to occur. In this case, they're going to do a live load. You'll see this continues down through the entire load, and at the very end of the run, what I want them to do is I want them to do a live unload. This means they're going to leave with the trailer. I will save this trip plan. Now all the instructions are in place. As you can see, the driver has all the information they need. But let's say when I go to my first location and do the pickup, they're going to add a seal to this. I can come in and I can add the seal information, save the trip plan, and it will take this data and automatically apply it to the remaining stops below. At any given time, as I set up additional segments to this data will be continually brought down through the entire trip plan for you without you having to recopy it. You can change it if you swap out seal numbers. It's a very flexible tool. You can change trailers. Again, if you were going to build a system and utilize containers, you can drop frames, pick frames, keep the container attached to it. It's an incredibly flexible system that is going to allow you to manipulate and build out all your transportation needs when managing your attached assets. As you can see, this is very feature rich for managing your equipment today.
Today I'm going to show you the itemization that we've added to the customer portal, so your users in the portal can see the itemized breakdown of their quotes. So it'll show the freight, fuel, and accessorial charges all in the quote wizard. And we've given you the ultimate flexibility so that you can control it at the individual user level. All right, so as I mentioned, for the user table, we've added this new field called Show Itemized Charges in the Portal. I've marked that as true. And when I log into the portal, I'll go ahead and build a LTL load. I will do it from Illinois. I'm gonna add a lift gate pickup, and then I will have it delivering in Los Angeles, and go ahead and add a residential delivery. Put in some commodity details here. Oops. And select the class, and I'll go ahead and get quotes. So you'll see once the rates return from our API provider, they'll break down the individual costs for the freight, fuel, and accessorials, and each accessorial name and cost will be broken down. So for this example, we have the residential and the liftgate. We'll see those individual charges shown here. Okay, so at the top, you can see again that it still has the total costs, and then underneath it, it's all of the itemized charges, including the different accessorials. And each carrier will have their different accessorial charges and the itemized details. And to give you a quick look for what it looks like when it's a truckload shipment, you can see the total cost is to the left, and then the itemized details will be to the right of the total cost. I have another feature that's also in the customer portal, and what this allows you to do is set at the user level how you want their rates to be displayed. So previously it was sorted from lowest cost to highest cost, and this feature will allow you to sort it by transit time. So you're going to see at the top the shortest transit time, and then at the bottom the longest. Commonly in LTL, you'll see the more reliable carriers are going to have a shorter transit time, where the longer transit times are also going to mean that it's more touch points in the carrier's terminals, which can increase the risk of damages and loss of freight. So by resorting this by lowest to highest transit, it's going to help your end customers maybe choose a little bit higher cost carrier, but then improve their overall satisfaction with the load and get the freight there undamaged and on time. So on the user record, we have another new field, and it's actually an existing field that we added a pick list value to. So for those of you that are familiar with the customer portal, it's this field called Customer Portal Quote Visibility. And these other pick list options, lowest quote only, fastest transit only, and all quotes, previously were available. We've adjusted the all quotes to show that it's sorted by lowest cost. So that is going to be your backwards compatible option. And then we've added a new pick list value, which is all quotes sort by fastest transit. So I'll go ahead and save that for this user record, and then I will jump into the customer portal. So I'm going to go ahead and build an LTL load, and I will do it from Illinois going to Boston. Add some commodity details and select the class and get quotes. So when the rates return from our API provider, you'll see that it's automatically going to be sorted by the lowest to highest transit time. And the instances when like 2 or 3 carriers have the same exact transit time, we'll then subsort that by lowest to highest cost. Additionally, if there's a specific carrier that doesn't provide a transit time, then we'll put that at the bottom of the list so that your users are more likely to actually choose a carrier that has transit provided. So you can see estimated transit is here, and then your cost is over here. So for the first couple carriers, it's all 2-day transit, and then you can see towards the bottom of the list, there's some 3s and then a couple 4-day transits. If I scroll back to the top and then click on this filter icon, you'll see that we've also added some additional fields to the sort by list. So previously we had the carrier and price sorted, and then we've added a new field called transit. So since it's defaulted automatically by transit, you can see it's highlighted in blue, but if I were to select price, you can see that that list now changed. So Roadrunner is at the top of the list with 4-day transits, but the cheapest cost. And then if I switch back to transit, you'll see it's now Saya with the 2-day transit and the lowest cost of the carriers that have 2-day transit times. So that is the new customer portal feature for sorting by transit time. Dave, back to you.
I do have one final slide with some miscellaneous enhancements and other new features that we've included in this release. So the first one on the list is one that I think is extremely popular with a lot of folks, and that's related to load posting enhancements. So the very first enhancement we made for this feature is we've shrunk the amount of time, or shortened the amount of time for the automatic load posting refresh interval. So you'll be able to refresh your load postings every 15 minutes. In addition to that shortened interval, the second enhancement to load posting that we've done is adding an unpost button to the load list view for bulk unposting. And then the last enhancement for the load postings is related to the auto unposting of loads based on a specified countdown. So for example, if you do have a load that you want to post at the beginning of the day or maybe late in the day and you want to unpost it, instead of having to wait for the end of the day before you clock out, or maybe you have to take off early for that day and you don't want your load posted out there, you can set a countdown such that the system will automatically unpost your load based on that predefined countdown window that you've determined. So that constitutes the load posting enhancements. Like I said, a lot of goodies there. So moving on to the next miscellaneous enhancements. One that I think a lot of our LTL folks will appreciate. We've disabled the linear feet calculation warning message for LTL-based loads. So I know that was one that was kind of a small thing, but somewhat of an annoyance, and we've addressed that, and I think everybody's happier for it. The next item on the list is a couple LTL API-related enhancements. So what we're doing now is we are including pickup and delivery instructions from the stops on the tender API requests for Project 44 and AccuFreight. The other LTL API providers that we are integrated with already had that information, and so we've basically made parity with all of the LTL APIs such that those stop pickup and delivery instructions are included in those tender requests. Next on the list, we've now, again, another kind of popular one that we have had requested for a while now, we've added a way to distinguish between a cloned load and a non-cloned load. So with this new field, we've added a new field on the load that is simply labeled cloned from, and that will tell you the load. If you're looking at a particular load, it'll tell you which load that load was cloned from. So you can create list views, run reports, so on and so forth to further segment and view your data. And then the last two, the first one being EDI job tuning. So EDI job, for those that use EDI, obviously that's something that we've worked diligently over the past few releases to enhance the performance of that job. And with this latest tuning, we've actually shrunk the size of the batch job significantly. We removed a few of the transactions from that job and put them on the different platform event technology, which speeds up the batch job and actually alleviates some of the throughput for that job itself. So again, further tuning that job for increased performance. So that covers the rather large list of enhancements and new features that we've included in this fall release. Like I said, we're very excited to get it into the hands of our users. It is available now, so certainly reach out to the Revenova help desk when you are ready to get that installed in your sandbox and then eventually deployed to production. So with that, we will move on to the Q&A. So we will open the floor up to questions that might have come through. Okay, so I realize we're close to the top of the hour. We only got about 5 minutes till 2 o'clock Central. We will stick around to answer the questions that folks have on the phone to a certain extent. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so let's jump right in and try to get through as many of these as we can. So the first question on the list here, is there a way to upload matrix rate entries if I have thousands of rate entries to create, each with a matrix per stop or per weight or per class? So the short answer to that question is yes, there is a way. However, that upload ability for matrices is not part of the standard tool set. So there is a way to do it, but you have to use the standard Salesforce data import wizard, or there's other upload tools that you can use. I definitely say for the person that asked this question, we can connect and walk you through that process in more detail if you are interested. Okay, question number 2. Is there an easy way to see when a quote request was sent, who sent it, and to which email it was sent? And for that, so that's, I guess, all related to the carrier RFQ. I'll toss it over to Liam. Liam?
Sure. Yeah. Long story short, the answer is yes. There is an easy way to see all those things. When we send those quote requests, we create an activity record that can be seen on the load, either in that same little activities tab that I showed in the demo, or there's the activity history related list that can be dropped onto the page, and that'll tell you who sent the email, who it was sent to, and when.
Cool. Thank you, Liam. Okay, next one. Regarding freight plan cloning, can you confirm that both the customer and carrier quotes are also cloned? I'll toss it over to David for that one. David?
Yeah, so similar to the regular load cloning function, toward the bottom of the page will be checkboxes for the carrier and customer quote. And if you select those, the quotes will be propagated over to the newly cloned load.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, moving on. We have a custom setup called EDI reference mapping that was created by Revenova a few years ago. Is this new setup replacing that, and will the records need to be manually moved over? So this, of course, is in reference to our new EDI reference mapping functionality. We have in the past built custom Apex jobs and tables that can accomplish the same functionality. So the short answer to that is yes, you would need to replace the custom code with the new productized code. It's a little bit more powerful. So it's inbound and outbound reference mapping. So my strong recommendation would be to do that translation. Technically, you don't need to. The custom setup would still work, but obviously, long term, we'll continue to enhance our EDI functionality. So to gain the benefits of that, you probably do want to do that upgrade. Okay, next one, another EDI question. Is the EDI reference mapping done per EDI load, or can we set it on an org-wide setting? Christine, why don't I toss it over to you for that one? Oh, Christine, we're struggling to hear you. All right, we're still struggling to hear you, Christine, so I'll take that one. So the short answer to that one is it is org-wide. So it's kind of a trading partner level and an EDI location setup where you would define those mappings at the trading partner level, where you would set those up, and then for every load, that's how the mappings will be configured. Okay, another EDI question here. I know we're about 1 minute away from the top of the hour. Like I said, we'll stick around here for a little bit more. And if we don't get to your question, we will follow up offline with you. So continue to enter those questions into the Q&A, and then we'll, like I said, we'll follow up. So next question, for the new EDI stuff, is there a place to map equipment types? Customers may send us something like van, and we want to map that to dry van 53. So the answer to that is actually that's something that you can do today. And when I say you can do that today, that's really more of a van, not equipment type van, but a value-added network provider option. So what happens with the Revenova EDI integration is when the mapped equipment types come in the XML. So if you have dry van 53 that comes in and it's mapped to the Revenova, I believe it's mapped on name. So if in the TMS you have an equipment type that is explicitly named dry van 53, and that's what matches on the value in the XML, then that's what would be mapped to on the load. So what that means, though, is that the van that you work with, one of the vans that we work with, or if you have your own custom setup, they would be doing the mapping on their side. So customers can send whatever they would like. That mapping occurs on the van side of things, and then they would forward on dry van 53. Okay, next one, another EDI question. With these new EDI tools, can multiple mapping values be put into a single field on the load or stops? For example, if we create 3 custom mappings for order numbers, can all 3 values from those mappings be put into a single field? Now, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, so I think we're taking note of who asked the question. We will follow up with you offline. So more to come on that. Be on the lookout for a response from us on that one. Okay, keep these questions coming. So next one, another EDI one. For EDI, is there a way to switch the EDI transaction from one load to another? We have some cases where we can't wait for the inbound EDI request, and we have to create the load to be able to tender on time. And we end by canceling the inbound requests from the customer. Being able to switch the transaction from one load to another will be very helpful. So I think the short answer to that one is no, you shouldn't be switching EDI transactions from one load to another. But I think really ultimately what this question is about is the speed of the EDI batch job and how you're receiving 204s and responding to those. So that's one that we've had a lot of internal conversation around, just speed in general of the EDI job. And one of our priorities that we're going to hit in next year, early next year in 2025, is to actually transition our EDI architecture from the batch-based processing that we do today and move that to an event-based architecture. So it's going to be real-time, essentially, instead of batch-based. And that one is, like I said, it's very top of mind for the entire product team here. We've had a lot of requests, a lot of internal conversations about that. So definitely look to see that sometime next year. That's something that we're working on right now. Okay. Next question. Has the latest supported version of Accounting Seed been increased in fall 24? That is another good question. I believe we're actually in the process of QA testing that right now. They're working through test cases with the latest Accounting Seed version. So that's another one we could take down. I see the person who asked the question. So we'll take that down as a follow-up and get back to you on that. Like I said, the QA team is in work right now, so more to come on that one. Okay. Next question. Is there any thought being given to a more productive way to save carrier quote requests and share with the respective customer rep in a split model, specifically those who are not set up in the system? You cannot record a carrier quote without the carrier having a transportation profile carrier service. Would be very beneficial for spot brokers. So certainly more thought. We have a lot of thoughts around this, and actually a handful of related requests that have come into this realm. I think what we're thinking through right now, and would definitely be interested to hear more from our customers, probably the best way to inform us would be via a CR, submitting a CR, explaining what your thoughts are. But what we're kind of struggling with now is the best way to accomplish that. Because ultimately, if you are going to be storing this information
eventually you're going to want to be linking it back to an actual carrier's TP and carrier service. And if you have two different systems or onboarding systems, or two different systems creating carriers in Revenova, then linking those together, that becomes a bit more of a challenge. So a lot of thought actually has gone into this, and we're still thinking through ways to accomplish this, specifically for spot brokers working with unknown carriers. But like I said, I think if you do have good ideas, we're all ears as to the best way to accomplish that. So definitely submit a CR for that, and we can have those conversations. Okay, last question. Is there going to be an update to automatically turn on the tracking beacon for trucker tools? So I believe that is on our roadmap. Liam is shaking his head. Liam, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, that was one I worked on. Yes, is the short answer. And for the longer answer and for more details on exactly what that'll encompass, I would encourage you to submit a CR so we can attach it to that feature.
Beautiful. All right. So that was all of the questions. So we got through most of them. So thanks everyone for the time and attention. As always, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out, and we look forward to the next webinar.